Okay, so there are plenty of times when you don't want to have to use individual segments to create your seam relationships. In this case, let's look at our box. We have a number of, I'm going to go down to my edit pattern tool so I can see the individual segments. We've got a number of segments here, and they don't match up to the seams I'd like to sew to. If I were to free sew this, I would do something a little bit different than I've done in the past. I would begin with my blue boxes, or what I'm calling the flag boxes, and I would begin by selecting my free sewing tool. By holding that down, I can select the simple free sewing, and this allows me to jump over segment points to define the entire length of region I would like to sew. So in this case, instead of selecting the middle of a segment to define that section, I'm going to select the start and end points of the area I'm wishing to sew. So I'm going to begin by selecting the point, not the segment, to begin. So start here. I can skip over these points. I'm not going to click on them. And I'm going to define the end of my sewing section here. Okay. Now that I'm done defining that section, I can go to the area where I would like this to sew to. And I don't have a segment or a length that corresponds to the 6 inches as shown by the flag length here. However, if I begin at one side that I know it has to begin sewing to, and I click on that point, hopefully you can see that my box, or my white box, has a new dot that's located right there, a navy blue dot, and that is showing me where the computer recommends that I stop that seam line to make an equivalent length segment. So if I were to begin again, I'm going to start by clicking my first line point and my end point. And now to sew to this larger box, I'm going to begin starting here. And then I'm going to continue until I get to the recommended point, and you can see the line lengths are the same. And now I've established my first free sewing seam line. I'm going to do it again so you can see. This time I'm going to start from the opposite direction. I'm going to start with the same direction. Let's do that. And as I establish my seam line, I've clicked on the first point, click on the second, skipping any intermediate points. Now I'm going to begin my sewing on the white box with the point at which I ended by highlighting and clicking on that first point. And I see a new point has changed color, at least, to the navy blue, and that's going to be where the computer is recommending I end this seam line relationship. So I'm going to click there, skip over not clicking on these intermediate points, and go all the way to my new navy point to finalize with a second click. The relationship's been established for this section of the seam line, and I'll move on to my final one. And this time I'll go in the opposite direction. I'm going to click, skip, click, and I'm going to start here, click, there's nothing to skip, and I'm going to go where it recommends at this point there. The value of this is that you don't have to define segments, and so if you have notches or other points on your pattern outline that are not informational or for the production or for the establishment of seam lines, you can skip over them with your free sewing. That makes it much handier than selecting individual segments, or when segments don't exactly match up. It allows you to skip over those intermediate points. It also allows you to show how long the seam line should be with the addition of that navy blue point from the computer